Yo, what's going on gamers? It's Ren 6 Days Week, and in this video, we are going to be going over the Nexon vs Ironmace court case, which concluded just earlier this month in February. I gotta be honest here, I could not find any official court case documents since it was a civil court case in Korea, and I imagine those documents will not be publicly facing anytime soon. The best we have at this current moment are a bunch of news articles which covered the case, and they seem to be all in agreement on what happened. To catch up to speed, almost 2 years ago in March 2023, Ironmace was served a DMCA takedown by Nexon to take the game off of Steam. This was successful, the game was removed from Steam. A little bit later, Ironmace was officially sued by Nexon on grounds of copyright infringement and trade secret infringement, essentially two separate charges. Now this wasn't just a random hit, Ironmace was specifically targeted by Nexon since the founding members did previously work at Nexon on a dark fantasy game by the name of P3. Now the exact reason why P3 doesn't currently exist and the reasons why Ironmace employees left Nexon is being handled in a separate court case. It's actually going to be a criminal court case, but I won't cover that in this video since I don't really have all the details. What is important for this video is the fact that P3 had some stark similarities to Dark and Darker, but also some key differences. Now I've never played P3, but it does sound like the court deemed that the games were different enough and the shared themes were a little too general for Ironmace to be infringing on any of Nexon's copyrighted content. This does make sense to me and just about anyone who's played Dark and Darker as well as any other fantasy game. I don't think this was a surprise to anyone. But the courts did deem Ironmace guilty of trade secret infringement, essentially stating that Ironmace used protected design and development secrets from Nexon in making Dark and Darker. And as a result, we'll have to pay Nexon 8.5 billion won or around 5.9 million USD for damages. A specific quote that was referenced in these articles was P3 information cannot be considered general knowledge, skills, or experience that defendant Choi, or SDF, acquired during his employment. In other words, if you want this in very basic terms, anyone on their own can learn to make fried chicken, right? But only a KFC food scientist at a pretty high level can learn how to make KFC specific fried chicken. That information is available nowhere else, and so the courts essentially said that, well, Ironmace created Dark and Darker using all these secret systems and design elements that were only available in the P3 development process under their company. But let's be honest, you don't really care about all those fine details. What you want to know is if Dark and Darker is safe to play, at least for the near future. And the answer is probably yes. Now listen, I tried to crunch Ironmace's financial numbers for quite some time by looking at some old messages, some statements on their sales from past interviews, as well as their server provider costs and the average spend of your typical Dark and Darker player. That got me nowhere. What I did find though is that some articles reference court notes and they talk about Dark and Darker's generated revenue and operating profits, which they all seem to agree with each other. So if we're going to trust them for the information given to us so far, we might as well trust them for the financial information of Ironmace. The stated number was that Ironmace roughly made 20 million in profits over the last year. So yes, being fined $6 million is a hit to Ironmace, but they will survive, in the near term at least. What does concern me for the long-term health of Dark and Darker is the fact that Nexon plans to appeal the court case results and increase the damages claim to over 20 billion won in a higher court. This would be equal to roughly 14 million USD in damages. In addition, neither of these numbers, the 14 million or 6 million referenced before, include the legal fees from the court case, in which Ironmace currently has to pay 80% of Nexon's legal fees. This could easily be millions more in penalties. So yes, the long-term health of the game could potentially be in danger. I'm not just talking about the lawsuit either. Dark and Darker has gone through a quite turbulent development cycle in the last year, and it's pushed a lot of players away from the game. On top of that, there are a ton of studios that are working in the same niche genre that are releasing a playtest or even early access version of their game throughout the year. Now I know this is all sounding like a bit of a doomer take on Dark and Darker, but no, I'm not saying the game is gonna fail in the long term. What I do think though is that we probably won't see much player growth in Dark and Darker over the next year or two. We also will probably see a much slower development cycle and not much headcount growth to Ironmace. So yeah, as one of Dark and Darker's biggest fans, seeing Ironmace get charged with trade secret infringement wasn't the best start to 2025, but seeing them not get charged with copyright infringement, which ultimately may have taken down the game entirely, means it wasn't the worst start either. Alright gamers, that's all I got for this video. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.